tribute to Dalai Lama will be opened by Pempa Tsering, who is also responsible for Tibetan religion and culture developments. Pempa Tsering, please welcome Pempa Tsering.
Excellencies, ambassadors, invited dignitaries, a very warm good morning and Tashidele to all of you. What an honor. It's not very often that we get such a platform to speak. And I would like to thank President Peter Powell for visiting Ladakh, meeting with His Holiness the Dalai Lama at the end of July, and for me also to meet him again at Forum 2000, and for him to be able to be present here and speak the opening remarks today. In fact, President Václav Havel was the first president, a sitting president outside of India to meet with His Holiness way back in 1990. And President Peter Powell was the most recent sitting president to meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I want to thank Ambassador Robert Rehak for giving us this opportunity. And I'm sure he will receive a love letter from the Chinese embassy after this. And many others have received it, so don't be fearful. We have to learn to stand up for our values that we so espouse and cherish. And I would say you should wear this as a badge of honor. As we gather here for many decades, and even now within China, as it's happening in many other parts of the world, more so in China as a communist country, the incarceration of Christian church leaders, Falun Gong followers, Uyghur Muslims, and Tibetan Buddhists are suffering tremendously under China's repressive and suppressive policies. The present government believes that if there are no minorities, then there will be no minority issues. So they are striking at the identity of every minority, including the Tibetans, starting with language. That is why, as President Peter Powell mentioned, about 1 million Tibetan children are in colonial-style boarding schools, away from their family, away from their language, away from their culture, and just being taught in Mandarin language and loyalty to the Communist Party. Religious freedom, as is taken for granted in the free world, does not exist in China. About 6,000 Tibetan monasteries have been destroyed. 1.2 million Tibetans died as a direct or indirect result of China's occupation in the initial years of communist China's occupation of Tibet. Today, the number of monks and nuns in Tibetan monasteries have been reduced to a few hundreds. It has been in several thousands in the biggest monasteries. But fortunately, for us, we have leadership like His Holiness Dalai Lama, and we have been able to re-establish some of these monasteries in exile. The Tibetan monks and nuns in independent Tibet could move from one place to another to preach and learn. But today, they have to seek at least 4 or 5 different permits to move from one place to another. Forget about preaching and learning from other masters. The Chinese Communist government that does not believe in any religion is responsible for setting curriculum for Tibetan Buddhist studies in the monasteries. The Tibetan monks and nuns are under constant surveillance by the Chinese government with numbers of CCTVs in all these monasteries. Now, the Chinese government wants to be responsible for recognition of reincarnated lamas, as Kundalini Rinpoche here or Telo Rinpoche here. They are reincarnated lamas and what they call as, Chinese call as living Buddhas. As far back as 2007, they issued an order called Order Number 5 that says that the Chinese Communist government will be responsible for recognition of reincarnated lamas. And that is aimed at the 15th Dalai Lama, the yet-to-come Dalai Lama. They are not concerned about the living 14th, but they are more concerned about the 15th, because they know that if they can control the 15th Dalai Lama, they can control Tibet and Tibetan people. 157 Tibetans have self-immolated from 2009 to 2022. And most of them are between the age of 17 to 35. They have never witnessed independent Tibet. They have never witnessed the 10 long years of cultural revolution that wreaked havoc on Tibetan people. As we celebrate His Holiness' 90th birthday and the whole year as Year of Compassion, His Holiness has been asked a number of questions about his reincarnation. When he is asked whether the next Dalai Lama could be a woman, His Holiness says, yes, why not? Women have a natural compassionate tendency. And then when His Holiness is asked whether it could be an emanation, which means appointing someone as your successor before your death, he says that is also possible because it had happened in Tibet. And sometimes His Holiness also says that I could be the last Dalai Lama, because His Holiness always says, this 14th Dalai Lama did quite well, and it's good to end on a high note. But this July, of course, his one thing that has been very consistent is since 1968, His Holiness had said that whether there should be a next Dalai Lama or not will be decided by the Tibetan people. So this 2nd of July this year, His Holiness made this proclamation that the institution of the Ganden Potang Trust of His Holiness the Dalai Lama will continue. And Kundaleng Rinpoche, who did the invocation today, is one among the 14 trustees of the Ganden Potang Trust of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who would be responsible for the selection of the next Dalai Lama. And His Holiness also confirmed that the lineage of the Dalai Lama will continue. So these are two confirmations that are very important. And we have been receiving support from the Buddhist world, not just from the Tibetan Buddhist world. Last September, for the first time, representatives from 12 Southeast Asian countries came to Dharamsala and offered a long life prayer to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and also conferred the title of Supreme Patriarch of the Buddhist world. And the Buddhists coming from Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Burma, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, Brunei, Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, and South Korea. And this has happened for the first time. Now, our goal is to reach out to governments to make policy statements. And United States Ambassador Sam Brownback is here, who has been a strong supporter of religious freedom for the Tibetan people. And the United States has passed a law, an amendment to the Tibet Policy Act of 2002, to the Tibet Support and Policy Act, wherein it mentions that the freedom of choosing the reincarnation should be with the Tibetan people, and any Chinese who will be involved in choosing the next Dalai Lama from the Chinese side will be sanctioned. And I have also been reaching out to governments. Last June end, I was in UK and also in Berlin. And the UK government and the German government assured us that they will issue a policy statement, and they were also in discussion with the French government. On July 6th of this year, as we celebrated His Holiness' 90th birthday, the UK, German, French, Holland, Iceland, Estonia, and Lithuania, 7 countries issued a joint policy statement on the freedom of religious belief for the Tibetan people, and for the Tibetan people to choose the right to choose the next Dalai Lama. And I think it's befitting at this congregation, because this is a congregation of the ambassadors of religious belief, if possible, to issue a communique or a declaration or a resolution regarding this matter tomorrow or at the end of your congregation conference. And that is all I expect. And we have to, as I mentioned, stand up for the values. Otherwise, China will keep trampling all of us. And today, you are free. Tomorrow, You may not have the same freedom if we keep following the Chinese government on other authoritarian regimes. We Tibetans will never give up. As His Holiness says, never give up. We will never give up. We will keep fighting, but we will need your continued support. Thank you so much. If I may, if I can, sorry. We have this message from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I'll just quickly go through this message from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. My warm greetings to everyone taking part in the Ministerial Conference of the Interreligious Freedom or Belief Alliance, the Article 18 Alliance being held in Prague this month. I'm pleased to learn that the conference is being hosted under the auspices of His Excellency President Peter Pavel of the Czech Republic, whom I had the honor of meeting earlier this year in India. Religious freedom, particularly in the context of promoting religious harmony, has been one of my lifelong commitments. I'm deeply grateful that this ministerial conference has chosen to recognize my humble efforts in this field. To me, religious freedom is an expression of freedom of thought. For followers of different faiths, this means the freedom to study their respective philosophies and to practice their traditions. In general, the practice of religion serves as a means for bringing about mental peace, the comfort and satisfaction that many derive from their faith and exercise in the context of religious freedom enables individuals to achieve peace of mind and inner strength. All major religions convey a common message of love and compassion, and to achieve these qualities, they commend the practice of forgiveness, tolerance, and self-discipline. There may be philosophical differences between these various traditions, but they seek to achieve a common goal. In the past, religious people may have thought in terms of there being only one true religion that taught one truth. Indeed, when it comes to one individual's personal practice, there may be but one truth and one true religion. However, in the wider community today, it's clear that we have several religions revealing several aspects of the truth. The important thing is for them to live together in harmony with each other, working to make our world a better place for everyone. On my part, I remain committed to fostering greater understanding of the importance of religious freedom and encouraging harmony among the world's religious traditions. I wish the conference every success. His Holiness the Dalai Lama.